What is up, everybody? Welcome back to the Finger Wag Podcast. My name is Gideon Hertz. I'm the host of the Finger Wag Podcast. Excited to bring to you today a quick but hopefully chock full of info and analysis post-game pod, our first official post-game pod after the Georgetown Hoyas, your Georgetown Hoyas, play their first game of 2025, the exhibition game at the GLOBL JAM tournament in Toronto. They beat, I guess that's still the correct description, but it was more than beat a Japan team. Georgetown ultimately wins it 88-53, and it was not as close as the score. We've got a lot to talk about and a lot to show and get and bring to you today in our first official post-game pod. As you all hopefully know, the Finger Wag was on site for this one. We are officially credentialed media for this tournament and got access to not only the game and all of the behind-the-scenes info, but also we've got quotes and thoughts from Coach Cooley as well as Deshawn Harris-Smith to bring to you, and excited to give you all of this coverage and dive into what was promising from your Georgetown Hoyas. Let's start with some just overall big takeaways from the game. This will be a solo pod, so I will try and go pretty quick so you all don't have to spend a ton of time listening to me, but I want to give you the high level thoughts and notes that I have. I'll give you the big takeaways. We'll talk a little bit about how Georgetown played as a whole. I'll give you some notes on the individual players, and then some final thoughts closing out from Coach Cooley and Deshawn Harris-Smith that from each of their media availabilities. The biggest takeaway is that Japan was not good. Georgetown was a lot better and also a lot bigger across the board. The size difference was significant, and Georgetown really just took advantage of it. And once they put the pedal down, they did not let up. Georgetown ultimately looked pretty comfortable. They got pretty much anything that they wanted. It's hard to judge, I think, too much from this game overall, but Georgetown did what you would like them to do against a significantly inferior opponent. They crushed them in all aspects. As a team, they went 36 of 65. That's from the floor, that's 55%, pretty good. And they, again, were really comfortable from the floor, to be totally honest. Not as good from three, though really didn't need to take many threes, and they didn't. They went 6 of 19, 31%. There were a couple of bad shots in there, or not necessary shots, or shots that I'm not sure that players would take in a regular season game, that I think dragged down that percentage a little bit. And we'll talk a little bit more about specific guys who were tracking there. But obviously, you know, we're going to be looking at that number and that percentage pretty closely to see how well they shoot overall. The big team number that stood out to me, and spoiler alert, stood out to Coach Cooley as well, is their assists, the Georgetown assists to made baskets. So they had 24 assists on, as I said, 36 shots. They were moving the ball a lot. You'll see really balanced scoring, a lot of guys involved, getting other teammates involved, and it was nice to see that not only were they looking for each other, playing for each other, but guys were able to finish when they got set up by their teammates. So that 24 assists to 36 made shots is a really good number and really stood out. Defensively, Georgetown was good. I mean, Japan was unable to really do much of anything. They, like I said, this game was not as close as 30-plus point win that it ultimately was. Georgetown sort of just shut it down for the last quarter and only scored 14 points in that quarter. That was Japan's best quarter. They scored 18 points. Georgetown held Japan to 10 points in the third quarter. That was sort of par for the course in this game. So not a lot to take away from that other than Georgetown looked like the dominant, athletic, and dominant skilled team that they were over Japan and really put their foot down on this Japan team. I think a lot of positives to take from it. Not sure that we learned much about the team that we didn't already know, but we got to see them and see their depth. And I think there was some really interesting stuff from individual guys that we'll talk about here next. So let's dive into individual players. And I'll start with just the note that Georgetown has 3 guards not available for this tournament. So they're thin in the backcourt, and KJ Lewis not playing, Langston Love not playing. That's the real surprise. And then Kayvon Mulready also not playing. So 3 backcourt players, 2 of which we sort of expect to be starters. Certainly KJ Lewis. We'll see about Langston Love. I think the way some of these other guys look has at least raise some eyebrows. But without those 3, you had a starting 5 of Malik Mack, Deshawn Harris-Smith, Isaiah Abraham, which was a interesting and maybe the surprise there, Caleb Williams, and the starting 5, which was a question coming in, was Julius White, and he looked all of it. We'll run down sort of the starting 5 here and what we can take away from them. First, Malik Mack. Mack finished with 11 points on 4 of 9 shooting, 2 of 5 from 3. That's 40%. He had 5 assists and only 1 turnover. Mack really let the game come to him. He was pretty deferential for most of the game in the first half. He stepped up, missed his first 3, but then was able to knock down his second attempt in a rhythm shot, made a second one in the second half. Overall, the 3 looked good. Again, he only took 5 of them, made 2, 40%, pretty good. There are a couple of open ones. A couple of those that he missed were open that you might like him to knock down, but tough to really take much from Malik Mack's game in this one. He looked comfortable, did not look like he was in 5th gear. He was deferring to guys, was trying to get others involved. And primarily, the guy he got involved was Deshawn Harris-Smith, who certainly was the loudest standout for this game. Deshawn Harris-Smith led the Hoyas with 19 points on 8 of 11 from the field, 1 of 3 from 3, 11 rebounds, 8 assists, 2 steals, 2 turnovers, nearly a triple-double for Deshawn Harris-Smith. And my first takeaway for DHS is he is huge. We got a chance to talk to him after the game and can confirm he is a bit of a beast. He is big, strong, physical. Got a shout out about this from Coach Cooley as well, which we'll get to. But early on in this game, when Georgetown was a little shaky, had some nerves, some kind of nervous energy, it seemed like, he took it upon himself to sort of settle them offensively. He hit a tough pull-up late in the shot clock when they hadn't had much going. He was able to get to the rim, to get buckets at all 3 levels, was just completely dominant defensively, on the glass, obviously, with 11 boards. Really good offensively, driving and getting to the rim and getting fouled. Again, it was tough to take much of this because he was clearly athletically and physically superior to the opponent, but he looked great. He looked dominant, was really impressive. On our preview pod, I know Jake said he was excited to see Deshawn Harris-Smith with some increased role, with the ability to sort of let it fly a little bit more on the offensive end. And I think in the first look at that, he definitely brought it. He was very, very good in this game and looked like he could go get a bucket when he needed to, which is something that I think this team probably will need. And of course, that was against Japan here, but if he can do that more often than not, I think you're gonna like what you see from him. Next was Isaiah Abraham, who I think was probably the biggest surprise in the starting five for Georgetown. Not sure where he ends up with KJ Lewis available, Langston Love, but he was playing in that starting three role, and I was really impressed with him. He did a little bit of everything. He finished with 10 points on 4 of 5 shooting, 1 of 2 from 3 rebounds, but he was sort of all over the place. He reminded me a lot of Caleb Williams last year, who just was in the right spot, making the right play, and being a really effective connector. He did a lot on the defensive end, made a lot of hustle plays, keeping rebounds alive, tipping balls, getting in passing lanes. Thought he was just really solid defensively, and offensively he was helpful and hit a kind of awkward looking three in the first, but I think as he sort of gets his feet under him, I'm excited to see his offensive game grow, but I certainly think this is a kid who looks like he is comfortable, knows how to play, and can fill a role that, frankly, this team needed last year. And if he can step in and play some of those minutes that maybe Jordan Burks or Curtis Williams were playing, I think he's could be an upgrade there. We'll see. Next was Caleb Williams, who's sort of firmly in that starting power forward position. And you all know how we feel about Caleb Williams on this pod. We're big fans. He finished the day with 8 points, 3 of 7 from the field, 2 of 5 from 3. For those of you who are keeping track of Jake's upside projection and prediction for Caleb Williams, that he could be a 40% free 3-point shooter this year. He starts off shooting 40% from 3, looked really comfortable, looked like he was ready to shoot, let it fly when it was open. And his shot looked a little quicker than at times last year, which I thought was interesting. He, like Malik Mack, sort of let the game come to him. He just looked overall very comfortable on both ends. Got engaged on the glass a bit, and just looked like he knew what he was trying to do out there. And that's building on where he was last year. I think there's a lot to be excited about with Caleb Williams. Julius White started at the 5. I think that was a little bit of a question going in. Some people thought that Vince Wachuku had kind of the inside track there. I think my feeling was it was probably going to be Julius, and I think that looked pretty clear today, that Julius is the starter. Now, it could be that Vince will get the start tomorrow, or that Kulie was going to Julius because of his experience in FIBA. But he was just absolutely dominant from the first whistle. Even though he only played 14 minutes, he finished with 14 points, 5 of 6 from the field, didn't shoot a 3, three boards, 2 assists, a steal, a block. He was in good position defensively a couple of times, which I think is something we noticed in his FIBA run, that he positionally was a pretty good defender. Just a question of sort of what his body was going to allow him to do. And I will say, I do think he looks a little bit bigger than he did at FIBA. We know he dropped some weight over the summer and needs to sort of bulk back up a little bit, and it looked a little bit bigger, though. Who knows? It could just be that we were seeing him in person, but he looked just completely dominant. Had some seals early on where he was able to just get in position, and his touch and footwork around the rim is so good that he's really able to score once he gets deep, kind of from anywhere. And then if he gets that position, you're kind of cooked, particularly Japan, who just didn't have anybody nearly good enough to match him. He had some really nice passes as well, some big to big passing that looked really good. He, again, just looked really comfortable on both ends, really defended the three and pick and pop pretty well. They switched a lot down there, which was interesting, and particularly because Japan sort of just from the get-go kind of gave up on even trying to get the ball into the paint. They just were sort of resigned to shooting from deep, very deep threes. And so that put some strain on the bigs. And I thought Julius did okay there, which was nice to see. Julius looks good. You all know how I feel about Julius, and I'm going to keep riding that bandwagon, I think. Because Vince Iwachukwu was the first off the bench for the Hoyas. He finished the day with 7 points on 3 of 13 shooting. That's 23%. We'll talk about that in a second. He was 0-2 from 3 as well. And those threes did not look great. 6 rebounds, 2 blocks, a couple of really big athletic looking blocks. He looked really good. He came, process wise, I think he looked good. He came in and immediately had like 5 chances rebounding his own misses, like 5 in a row, because he was a foot and a half taller than anybody else on the floor, and he just missed them all. And that was kind of the tail of his game. He had some problems finishing at the rim for sure, and it just looked like his touch was not there. The process to get to those shots was really good. I liked a lot of the footwork. The post moves were there. He was able to go over both shoulders. It just every shot just did not have the right touch on it, hit the back iron and kind of popped out or something like that. So process over results right now is totally fine, but you hope that the results get there and the touch improves. I think if the touch does improve, he's going to be tough because he is quick and mobile and makes those moves with really, really confident conviction and strong, really sets up his defender well. He just missed a bunch of bunnies, and that 23%, what did I say? 23%, yeah, was the outlier for this team. And he could have had a big day really if he had just finished those. Particularly just finished one of those first 5 that he missed going up and down. Jeremiah Williams was next. Thought maybe that he would get the start with KJ Lewis and Langston Love not in, but I think he's pretty clearly going to be the backup guard here, the backup point guard, one of the first guys off the bench. Looked like he had stubbed his hand a little bit or stubbed his finger when he came in for his first stint. He had to sub out really quickly and get some treatment from physio, and I think looked a little shaky there. He finishes with 9 points on 4 of 5 shooting. He was 1 from 3, 2 boards, 3 assists, 3 turnovers, and those turnovers I really thought might have been just like he either a cut or something up with his finger from that first action. But he ended up being fine. I thought he looked exactly as advertised, as a floor-raising guard. He's very solid. He's got them running at times, which was nice to see. I think the question with him, as Jake mentioned on our preview, is can he be a ceiling raiser too? Can he add the some shooting and scoring and raise that ceiling higher? And I don't think we saw evidence of that yet, but that doesn't mean it's not there. And the floor is high for him. He's going to come in and play really solid. You're not going to lose a lot with him out on the floor. And I thought he looked pretty good in this one. Jaden Fort is next. Probably one of the most interesting players on the day. He finished with 10 points, led the team coming off the bench, 5 of 6 from the floor, 2 rebounds, an assist, 4 turnovers, and the turnovers were really an issue early on for him. He just looked a little uneasy, a little nervous. It looked a lot just like he hadn't played in a really, in this type of competitive atmosphere in a while, which is true. And I think that is sort of what he saw early on. Couldn't grab the ball totally, was a little, threw it away a couple times, and I think that manifested in some of those turnovers. But after that, he really settled down. He missed an easy dunk early where he tried to tomahawk it, had to hang on to the rim, hit the back iron and tried to grab it and while he was hanging on to the rim, which is obviously a no-no. But he came back and kept at it and had a couple of actually really nice dunks off of cuts. Once he started settling in, he had a really good finish off of a baseline cut that's Seal Juve found him for the dunk. I'll be really interested to see how he improves as his minutes go in this tournament as he gets more comfortable. He had a nice pull-up jumper from the free throw line at one point in the first half as well. He looks like he's got the tools, which again, if you listen to the preview pod, you won't be super surprised that he's got the tools. He is an athletic, big, really, really just high athleticism option, and I think he looked really impressive after getting over the initial nerves. And I think it's a question of can he continue that, maintain it, and do it against increasingly good competition. Last but not least, notes on Seal Juf, who I really liked. He did not score, was 0 for 2 from the field, 3 rebounds, 3 assists, which was really interesting, which is just what I think jumped off the page for him, is that he read the game really well. I mentioned the pass he had to Jaden Fort, cutting from the baseline to get him a dunk. He had a couple of big to big sequence passing, and one of them, I think he could have had 4 or 5 assists. A couple of them, Vince Wachuku just kind of missed the bunny on at the end, but he looked like he was able to find his teammates and process the game pretty well on the offensive end. Wasn't looking to shoot or score as much as you'd probably like, and didn't look super confident there. Got a lot of talk from Ed Cooley about that, I think. But a couple of really nice post moves that I noticed. He had one where he spun to his right and then spun back to his left, and the footwork was quick and looked really decisive. He just didn't have the finish there. So don't know what Seal's going to be, but I think he again is a floor raiser in that if you have to play him, 5 minutes, or somebody's in foul trouble and you need him, he's gonna be a serviceable big in those minutes. And I was really pleased to see. But again, this was against a team that just was not up to par at all and didn't have the size, and it's reflected in the score and how Georgetown took advantage of them. Couple of big picture notes. Georgetown and Ed Cooley went to double big lineup late in the second quarter with Vince and Julius, which was frankly just a little mean because Japan didn't have the size to match against one big, and putting both of them out there was brutal for them. That lineup dominated, sort of capped off by a Julius pass to a cutting Vince from the free throw line for a big dunk. They looked really comfortable, really confident. Didn't play that lineup a lot, but I'm interested to see if that's a viable option, particularly with the lack of depth they have at the 4. Can they go to that double big with 3 guards? I think in that lineup they played with Jeremiah Williams, Deshawn Harris-Smith, and Malik Mack, which is obviously good defensive lineup at the guard position. You've got good rim protection with Vince, and then the spacing worked pretty well. Might need some more shooting in that lineup just to space things out, but in this scenario, it worked really well. And I'm interested to see if we get a little bit more of that over the course of the next few games, because it looked viable in the few minutes that they gave it. And if that's something that you can play, it's just another dimension I think that Coach Cooley has. I'll be interested to see if they do more of that, and we'll ask Coach about that as well if we get more of it, because it is certainly something to watch. So we were able to get access to Coach Cooley after the game, as well as Deshawn Harris-Smith. Really appreciate Coach and Deshawn, as well as the Georgetown folks and everybody behind the scenes for helping us do that. It was really cool to be able to talk to Coach and to get some of your questions answered. We look forward to bringing more of that to you. Got full quotes available online. I'll give you some highlights here. The thing that I think stood out to Coach was how unselfish his team was. We mentioned the assists to made baskets. He said, I thought we had multiple people contribute. We were very unselfish with the ball. We had multiple contributors. I thought Deshawn played really well. He called out Deshawn. He was standing right there, but I think it was right to call him out. He really excelled, as we talked about. Kulie said of Deshawn, we told him when we recruited him that we wanted him to play 5 positions. I think he is a positionless player. What he brings defensively mimics a lot of what we had with Micah Peavy last year. Obviously, really high praise on the defensive end. And I'm not sure that he does all of the things that Micah Peavy did, but he is a impact defender for sure. But it was really the offense that stood out. And the rebounding was there as well. But I think it's interesting that Coach mentioned playing him as a positionless, a guy who can play all over the floor, who can fill different roles. He definitely got the size and strength to do it. I'm not sure that he's tall enough to play, the 5 against some of those bigger Big East centers, but he's got the strength for sure and looks like an absolute pest to have to play against because he is so strong, has the quickness, and turns defense to offense really, really quickly. Hard to overstate how impressive Deshawn Harris-Smith looked in his first Georgetown action, even against a team like Japan that Georgetown was clearly better than. He really excelled. Coach called out how he liked the team sharing the ball, the assists that they were able to get. Again, I think it was 24 assists on 36 made baskets. Obviously a really, really good clip there and really unselfish. Said he thought that really fueled their confidence, feeding the ball to the post, a lot of big to big passing, and thought that they were overall very unselfish. He had some interesting notes on what they were hoping to accomplish and decision to play GLOBL JAM. He said, we've made the decision to play here only maybe 8 weeks ago. So they went into the summer. We didn't know if we were going to be sending our men home at the end of the summer, but I know our chemistry and camaraderie has really grown in the last 9 weeks. And that's really a key of what they're hoping to get out of this tournament. So I think a little bit of an answer there as to why this was announced, seemingly spur of the moment. It obviously wasn't, but late for an international trip. Obviously, it's across the border, so it's not as far as one might go. But this was a relatively late decision that they made, apparently, and I think it was done for a reason to really build chemistry with this group. And I think it's going to prove to be a smart call because this team looks like with chemistry, they've got some pieces. Of course, one game down will slow the roll, but looked good. Obviously, the team's got Canada tomorrow, and he said tomorrow will be a totally different game, playing in front of a sold-out house. Obviously, we're on foreign land, so what we're looking to do is how do we build a culture of success at Georgetown? He's really focused on that and looking to see how his team responds. There were fans there today, obviously. I guess not obviously, but there were fans there today. A lot of Georgetown fans, and then after the game, after Georgetown was the women's team, which is the Texas Longhorns women's team. They had some fans as well. So the USA folks traveling pretty well. Do expect there to be a lot of folks in attendance tomorrow. I think Canada is probably the best opponent that Georgetown's going to play. And realistically, I think we should expect to see a different environment tomorrow. And I think Coach Cooley's interested to see how his team responds to that. He said this about sort of the approach and expectations for the season, which I think stuck out to me almost more than anything he said. This is what it's all about, trying to prepare us for November 3rd, the start of the season, to try and become an NCAA tournament team. So he's firmly focused on becoming the NCAA tournament team in year 3. That's his goal. Try and follow up more on that. But I think it's clear that that's where they're pushing towards. And, I think we've talked about the upside of this team. We've talked about the floor of this team. I think it's the right goal to have, and he certainly has it. We also, as I said, talked to Deshawn Harris-Smith, who had just a really, really good game. My first note, I think I mentioned, but if I didn't, Deshawn Harris-Smith is huge, 6'5", 6'6", but just strong, built like a train. Does not seem like he would be fun to play against. because you're not moving him, and he's quicker than you too, which is tough. He said this about playing in the tournament, and I've never been blessed to play overseas and represent America. I feel like it's a once in a lifetime opportunity. I'm just trying to make the best of it for my teammates and have a lot of fun, get better, and build our team chemistry. The chemistry thing came up a lot through this, as you might expect, but it's nice to hear that they're focused on it. And I think they're in the right place and trying to build that chemistry, communication, and the like. If there are questions that you have for the coach, for the team, let us know. We'll see if we can ask some of those, but we can also answer questions on the pod and let you know what we saw from our perspective to try and help get you specific answers to your questions that you might have. Lastly, we'll give you some of these questions that folks mentioned, just to give some shout outs here. Matt Gross, MSG Hoyas on Twitter, asked us how's Fort looking and any idea of how serious Mulready's injury is. We talked about Jaden Fort. Again, started slow, looked rusty, settled in for sure. He had 6 points in the first half, and he said he ended with 10. Couple of nice cuts. The shot from the free throw line looked really good. No clue on Kayvon's injury. He looked to be moving fine, but there was nothing that we could tell. Didn't see any braces or anything like that. We'll obviously have to see on that. James JJ Mastriani on Twitter. Can anyone shoot, or is it bully ball, size mismatches inside? A little bit of both. I mean, they shot at the half 60% from the field, so they were doing everything. Ended the day with 55% from the field, which is still pretty good. Didn't shoot a lot of threes and didn't need to, but as I said, I think that the percentage probably is a little misleading because of a couple of sort of end of shot clock shots and the two that Vince put up that probably he wouldn't have in other scenarios. And obviously Langston loves a big piece of that. Hoyas 70 Saxa just asked Malik Mack. As we said, let the game come to him. Wasn't overly aggressive and hit a couple of rhythm threes that was nice to see. Missed a couple of those as well, but shot at 40%, and that's all we can ask. I mean, that'd be great if he could shoot that consistently. So not much to take from his game. He does look a little bit bigger. We'll see more. I think, as the opponents get better, we'll be interested to see how Malik progresses. We're really excited to be here in Canada. We'll have more coverage for you tomorrow, Thursday. If you're listening to this on Thursday night, 6 p.m. Eastern, Georgetown will be taking on the Canadian men's team. That is going to be broadcast in Canada, and I believe picked up by ESPN Plus in the States. You should subscribe or look into that. You might have to purchase ESPN Plus. I'd say it's worth it. I'm not a shill for ESPN by any means, but if you can watch Georgetown basketball, you should figure out a way to do that. Either way, the Finger Wag will have more coverage for you. We'll be at the game. We'll have live updates. We'll have thoughts and quotes from the coaches and team after the game, hopefully get you even more content and coverage, as we are really just honored and thrilled to be able to bring this to you. And again, really appreciative of the Georgetown folks for allowing us to join in here and get access and talk to Coach and others. It's been a cool experience for us, and we're just at the beginning. So we're hoping to grow and build, and we look forward to continuing to cover this tournament, continuing to cover the team. Tune back in, subscribe to the pod, all of that stuff. Let us know what questions you have, and we'll answer them. I was answering some questions on Twitter during the game. Tune in and follow us on Twitter, Finger Wag Hoyas, on the website at thefingerwag.com, YouTube, podcasts, all of those places, and reach out to us through those places. Send us a note on Twitter. Also, you can always email me at editor@thefingerwag.com, and we'll do our best to try and answer questions and to be responsive to the fans, because that's what we're here for. As always, Hoya Saxon.